And hello, welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm Daren, Jaime, and today we'll update you what's happening in and around our borough as well as across New York City. Coming up, January is Glaucoma Awareness Month. We'll discuss the symptoms and causes you need to pay attention to. Then, we'll talk about how the post-holiday season is impacting people's mental health and when should a person actually seek professional help. We'll also learn about the new employment and labor laws for people that need to understand more in 2023. We'll have more details a little later on in the show. And then afterwards, we'll talk about how one center is providing the highest quality blood hospitals as well as patients in the greater New York area and beyond. And finally, we'll discuss a bill that's able to protect workers against unfair firing. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. I am Daren, Jaime. You're watching a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network as Open is being broadcast simultaneously on the Eminent channel. You can stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. Well, some things have been going on through the course of the past week. We'll take you through it with some Bronx updates. Well, we have some late city news. The Bronx High School received a donation from the New York Power Authority for its automotive program. Our BronxNet reporter Julian Torres has a story.
Teenagers at the Alfred E. Smith CTE school in the Bronx are getting a new car to work on.
We have several partners, the New York Power Authority, and they have donated this vehicle. It's a 2013 Ford Fusion Hybrid.
A hybrid vehicle has been donated to the Alfred E. Smith High School for the school's automotive program. This donated hybrid vehicle will help students better their auto mechanic skills, and the students couldn't be more excited.
It's very exciting to be able to work on a car gifted to us because it gives us a lot of opportunities, and to see that the company cares for our future, it's very exciting.
And those opportunities are given thanks to the New York Power Authority, whose goal through their environmental justice program is to share the expertise in the hopes of creating a cleaner future in transportation, as KLM Yates, the director of the program, explains.
There's going to be a huge demand for hybrid electric vehicle technicians who understand clean transportation. And so we donated this car so that we can make sure that we're enhancing the curriculum.
With the enhancement to the curriculum being a new hybrid vehicle to work on, the students are going to get hands-on experience learning how to expect electric vehicles.
Extremely excited. It's really all you want to do when you come here. Difficult, very difficult to do the lesson, right? The lesson is on a smartboard, on a computer. But they love the hands-on aspect.
And with this donation, the students at the Alfred E. Smith CTE school are going to get a lot to learn. Reporting from BronxNet, Julian Torres.
And thank you, Julian. That is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. But when we return, we'll have more Open. Stay tuned.
I'll see ya.
After a basketball game, a black teenage boy, Brandon, reads his texts in his family group chat. Auntie Flo, congrats on the big win. Mom, that's my baby. Brandon replies, thanks y'all. In a park, his sister Maya texts, where are we celebrating? Dad replies, home. Mom texts, I got dinner going. Auntie Flo replies, ooh, I can't wait. Then receives a FEMA flood watch text alert. She texts the family, anyone see that weather alert? We need a plan to stay safe, especially after last year. Ready has a list of resources at ready.gov/plan. In his workshop, Dad sends a photo of emergency supplies and texts, looks like we need flashlights and batteries. Leaving a store with a shopping bag, Brandon replies, I got us covered. Mom texts, I'll check in with Grandma and Papa. Maya texts, thanks Auntie, feeling good about this plan.
I got some batteries and 2 flashlights.
So chill. I feel like you get taller every time I see you.
January is Glaucoma Awareness Month, and glaucoma is the leading cause of irreversible blindness. Now, more than 3 million people in the United States have glaucoma. The National Eye Institute projects this number will reach 4.2 million by 2030, which is in 7 years, which is a 58% increase. Joining us now to tell more details, we've got the optometrist at Pelham Parkway Vision Center, Dr. Diana Ilyasova. And Dr. Ilyasova, thank you for joining us. And when we look at these numbers, it's kind of scary when you say by the year 2030 that we will see a projected 58% increase.
Sounds about right. We have found more ways to diagnose glaucoma. So as technology arises and medical understanding arises, we do find that many people have glaucoma.
And when we talk about having it, some people wait before the diagnosis comes, and some people it becomes too late. But that's why we're here today. We're talking because it's a Glaucoma Awareness Month. So let's make our viewers aware as to how exactly do we define glaucoma?
Well, the true definition of glaucoma is slow optic nerve damage. So the optic nerve is a nerve that connects your eyeball to the back of your brain. So this optic nerve begins to slowly atrophy or slowly degenerate, and when it completely degenerates, one can become blind.
And I understand that the glaucoma does come in different forms. For someone that's out there, how are we able to differentiate the different types of glaucoma?
The most common type of glaucoma is an open-angle glaucoma. Open-angle glaucoma means there is still space for the fluid to move around in your eye. You just have more or less high pressure, but the fluid is able to move. That's the kind of glaucoma we're talking about most commonly. There is another type of glaucoma called angle closure glaucoma, and that's pretty rare. And it's usually a medical emergency. That's when the fluid might be producing correctly, but it's not leaving the eye fast enough due to obstruction, or we call an angle closing, and the fluid is obstructed and it can't move in the eye, out from the eye, and you have a very high eye pressure.
We hear a lot about eye pressure. Give us some insight here. Will you talk to me about it, because there's a normal eye pressure, I guess, and what causes eye pressure to vacillate?
Okay, so we're still not sure why some people have this problem where the pressure starts being accumulated in the eye. Okay, we do know that glaucoma has a very high hereditary risk there. So at some point in your life, the fluid starts accumulating in the eye a lot, and this causes high eye pressure. When we talk about glaucoma, we almost anonymously talk about high eye pressure. It's a risk factor for glaucoma. So when the pressure rises in the eye, it atrophies the back where the optic nerve is. And this is how they're correlated. So the pressure rises, it ends up atrophying slowly the nerve, and then it's a slow progression, but the progress continues.
If someone's out there asking the question about symptoms, how do we diagnose what the proper symptoms are when it comes to this?
Well, that's the problem with glaucoma. It comes with no symptoms practically, except for angle closure glaucoma. That's when I mentioned it's a medical emergency. Most of glaucoma, primary open angle glaucoma, there are no real symptoms. You don't come in holding your eye in pain. You can have occasionally very red eye. You can have some kind of pressure. You can have colored halos in your view, but more or less, it's almost always shocking for a patient, because they come symptom-free, and then I have to diagnose them glaucoma. They're not understanding, but I don't feel like I have glaucoma. I don't have pain. I never suffer. So that's the sad part about glaucoma. We actually don't have symptoms.
Yeah. As we look at the numbers, can you tell us who do you find to be a predominant risk when we look at glaucoma because there are some demographics that stick out more than others.
Yes, well, I'll tell you, glaucoma is prevalent all over the world. It's all over the world, but there are some demographics that have more glaucoma than others. Um, Very heavily in Latin Americans, Caribbean Americans, Caribbean countries have very high prevalence. Uh, Also very prevalent in Africa. In Eastern Europe, you have other forms of glaucoma. There are other subtypes of glaucoma. In Eastern Europe, we call them usually pseudo-exfoliative or pigmentary glaucoma. It's very common in Europe, that kind of glaucoma.
And as I look around, I see so many people are now becoming more and more aware of glaucoma. We're talking about this eye challenge that many people are really struggling with today. But for yourself, the work that you're doing over at the Pelham Parkway Vision Center, talk to us about how many people you're seeing and what's it been like for you.
I feel like I'm in like this beautiful spot of Bronx, and I get all kinds of people, and but primarily my patients are from Latin descent and African Americans, and which is very high prevalence of glaucoma. I feel like I speak about glaucoma all day long. I know it's not like this everywhere, but wherever I am in Pelham Parkway, glaucoma is pretty prevalent. And I'm fortunate to have great medical devices and many ways to spot the disease earlier.
Well, I know that exams are key and critical, and sometimes we don't make our necessary trip to the optometrist the way that we should. How often should a person go over to the optometrist, getting their look and seeing how things are going?
Yes, I always say you should please check your vision once every 2 years, even though if you don't need glasses. Because there are things we check, such as glaucoma, which we do normally take pressures on everyone, such as glaucoma that we can spot. And it doesn't have to be correlated with bad vision. People with good vision can also have glaucoma. So eye exams are very important. If you're a very healthy adult, once every year, once every 2 years stretch, but not more than that.
What about children? How much are they at risk when we talk about glaucoma?
So kids can also have glaucoma. We call juvenile glaucoma very rare. So most of the time, glaucoma is prevalent over 40. Children are at the lowest risk. I do see very few occasions that I can spot a child who has glaucoma. I think more than 10 kids in my mind right now that I'm currently following them for glaucoma, but in general, they're very low risk.
I want to look at a statistic that says, a 58% increase by 2030. That's what we're looking at out there. And it's 6 to 8 more times prevalent in African Americans and Caucasians. But the sad part is 40% of people, as many as 40% of people can lose their vision without a person noticing.
Yes, that's the issue. There's no symptoms. And the way you lose vision, it's not in front. So you're not noticing cloudy vision. The way you start losing vision is at the periphery first. So slowly, maturely, without you noticing, your periphery starts declining. And it can go like this. Your periphery starts declining. It is so slow that the person doesn't wake up realizing he's not seeing peripheral vision. But, since it's progressive and slow, by the time they realize that they're not seeing so well, that's already like advanced stage of glaucoma. And the vision that's lost, unfortunately, cannot be regained.
Yeah.
I cannot revive the cells. The cells in the optic nerves are done. So unfortunately, that's why it's very important to get eye exams. Unfortunately, you don't have symptoms. And some people do walk into my clinic a little bit too late, and I have to tell them that I can't recover that vision that was lost.
Well, that's why we got you here talking about this, Dr. Ilyasova. As this is January is Glaucoma Awareness Month, and that's what we did. We actually raised the awareness here on this show. So thank you so much for being with us, and hopefully somebody will take advantage of going ahead and getting that eye exam and doing that preventive maintenance is what we call it.
Absolutely. Very important. And thank you for spreading awareness.
No,
Especially-
we're glad we can. I want to let our viewers know now, if you want more information, guess what? Visit the website at PelhamParkwayVisionCenter.com. Again, that's PelhamParkwayVisionCenter.com, and you can be scheduled for an exam. We encourage you don't go anywhere. We do have more open coming up right after this.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
The way my mind works, I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
Analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I'm more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
And welcome back. The holiday season can be a joyful and a relaxing time for many people. But once the festivities wind down, sadness and loneliness can actually creep in. After the holidays are over, the colder seasons can promote the onset of mental health issues such as seasonal depression, major depressive disorder, as well as anxiety disorder. And here now, sharing more details about this is the medical director of psychiatry at EmblemHealth, and we've got Dr. Kelly McGuire. And Dr. McGuire, glad to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Daren. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I usually say January is one of the coldest times of the year, but it's also one of the roughest emotionally. And some would think that maybe after the holidays, things would get a little bit better, but sometimes it's the onset of something worse.
It's true. It is true. This is the time of year that can be particularly hard on people. We have, this after gatherings or not, where, loved ones have come together. After that can be particularly difficult for people when they're suffering isolation or other mental health problems. And also, as the days are getting colder and shorter, that can start to affect our mood too. And people can start to feel down, just like you said, with, seasonal affective disorder or SAD. Sometimes also called, the seasonal blues, which is a type of depression that can come and go with the seasons. But we also have to remember that we're still in the pandemic, and that is also an incredibly difficult time for people. People are reporting a lot more mental health problems since the pandemic. And this disproportionately negatively affects, the people that were hardest hit by the pandemic. So individuals, of different racial and ethnic minorities, young adults, essential workers, and caregivers.
Yeah. How prevalent and common is this amongst our community, given the fact that we're talking about winter, we're talking about holidays, but many people will say, listen, this doesn't affect a lot of people, but how prevalent is this?
It's common. It's common. Mental health problems are common, and I think we need to start destigmatizing that and talking more about it, and being aware of what some of the signs and symptoms of some of our more common mental health disorders like depression are.
Yeah, well, let's get right at it, because you're talking about seeing the signs and symptoms. To the average person, we may just overlook that. It could be in common conversation. We could just be, communicating, and I can just totally miss the fact that you really are headed in a downward spiral or a bad place. So let's unpack what some of those signs and symptoms are.
That's it. That's great. Let's unpack that. So first off, let's start with if this is going to look different in everyone. Depression isn't going to look the same in two people, but some common signs and symptoms that we see are, when people have a prolonged feeling of sadness or hopelessness. People can start to have changes in their sleep or their appetite, and this can go either direction. You can be eating more, eating less, sleeping more, or sleeping less. You might have something that we call anhedonia, which means difficulty getting pleasure out of things that you used to get pleasure out of. This can also look like irritability. You may find yourself, this could manifest itself in substance abuse. You might be having thoughts of death or wanting to kill or hurt yourself, among other symptoms. And so if you recognize any of these symptoms in yourself or in someone else, talk to a doctor about it. And really what you're looking for is a change in that person's baseline. You're going to notice, a difference in how that person was to you previously, and that's a sign, and that's something that we should talk to that person about, and that we should encourage them to seek help for. And if it's in ourselves, to be allowing ourselves to be talking to our medical providers about that.
Let's talk about that, because talking to a medical provider, talking about mental health is not sometimes common. As we talked about, we have to do some destigmatization to get people away from what some of the common stigmas are. Why are people hesitant to really embrace mental health, especially now?
That's a really great question, and it's so multifactorial. I think we can start off with the awkwardness of talking about, your own personal experiences and feelings with someone else. But that talking about our mental health is going to be the first step to getting the right type of care. So, we have that awkwardness. We have our societal expectations. There's a lot of those on men, to not be talking about their own mental health. We have, cultural barriers. Some communities, more so than others, can create environments that can sometimes prevent people from being open about their feelings and seeking help. Some people also may have a lack of a support network. Some people may distrust the health system. Some people may put their own problems on the back burner because they have other responsibilities, or maybe just have difficulty navigating the system. And these are reasons why it's important, just as you said, to destigmatize the conversation and to encourage people to take that first step to talk to their doctor about it.
I think there's also fear, if you will, and just, from my perspective, I've talked to some people about a fear of possibly being medicated, right? And that's an option, but that's one of the stigmas that's out there. If I go see the doctor's gonna give me some, or try to put something on me, and now I'd rather just not say anything. But talk to us about what some of these treatment options are that are available to people.
And there's a lot of treatment options available, and it's going to depend on where you are in your journey and the severity of your symptoms. And so again, it's going to be really individualized. And some people, they may benefit if they're having depressive symptoms, they may benefit from talk therapy alone, right? And there's going to be some people that may need talk therapy and medications. There's going to be some people that may prefer to be only on medications. And those are the types of services that, you would seek through, your insurance provider, through those sorts of avenues. But then there's others that are even, before that. I don't know if you're familiar with sort of coaches, for instance. Maybe your employee assistance program has a coach. Those are, nurses or social workers. They're coached in being able to support you with health and wellness, maybe burnout, financial issues, those type of things. And if they felt like there was a need that maybe needed talk therapy to escalate it, they would let you know. And if a talk therapy doctor felt that you may need also, additional medications, they would let you know, and they would make that recommendation. But there's a broad range of services. Peers, I don't know if you're familiar with that. I love peers. Peers are people that have gone through this journey as well. We hear a lot about the folks that are suffering from mental illness. We don't hear a lot about the success stories. And your peers are your success stories. They've gone through substance abuse and they came out the other end, and they're there to walk that journey with you. They've gone through mental illness. They've had hospitalizations. They're there, no matter where you are. And there are organizations like NAMI that provide these type of supports, and there are also supports like that are available, for instance, maybe through your insurance provider. And so just know that there's a wide range, and it's not a one size fits all solution. And if you're afraid of medication, don't not talk to somebody because of that, because there may be other fits that are better for you then. And then just know that there's also things that you can be doing on your own.
Yeah.
That, right now we can be walking. We can do some sort of exercise 30 minutes a day. If you're the type of person that meditates, that's something that would be helpful for you. If you're the type of person that you can practice your faith, but also just getting sunlight on your face is helpful for you. Activate your supports, activate your friends and your loved ones, and maybe if you don't have that, volunteering is also a great thing to do. Get yourself out there and help others.
Yeah. Dr. Kelly McGuire, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for the helpful information. I think that, as we said, there's a lot of stigmas out there when it comes to mental health, but we're seeing more and more in cases across our nation. People need help, and hopefully we can provide that by just giving them some insight right here on this show. So thank you so much for doing what you did today, and glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Well, now I want you to know, if you want more information, please visit the website at EmblemHealth.com, and then also follow them on social media at EmblemHealth. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We've got more open coming up right after this.
STEM is everywhere, like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that could be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker boards.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at SheCanSTEM.com.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about Port Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
I'm sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Shug, you know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for you. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
And we are back. Over the course of 2022, New York employers saw significant developments in state and local employment laws. Now, this trend continues into 2023 with a wide range of employment laws slated to become effective. So what are some of the key changes to New York employment laws, and what does this mean for you moving forward? Joining us now to discuss these are the founding partner of the Boyd Law Group, Patrick J. Boyd. And Patrick, glad to have you here, and glad to have you sharing with us, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy 2023 to you as well.
I want to first talk about this here because as we talk about 2023, as I said, the intro, new employment laws, but one law in particular that I am paying attention to, I think a lot of people are paying attention to, is really when you talk about pay transparency. The fact that employers now have to be able to share their salary. Walk us through exactly a little bit more about this law and what we can expect.
Sure. So the general rule is now, and this governs very small employers and large employers, so down to 4 employees or more. The rule is that if you're posting a new job as an employer, you need to post the range of the salary offered with respect to that job. Now, you don't have to be precise. You can give a range, and it just needs to be in good faith. But posting the salary range for people is going to change a lot about how people search for jobs, how they choose what jobs to apply for. And as a result, of course, it will change the resumes that employers are seeing when they open up a job. Potentially equally interesting is the concept that current employees will now get a chance, if their job title is posted, to see what other people in their job title are making. And this may inform them as to whether or not they should ask for a raise, whether or not they're being paid fairly, and things like that. So a meaningful change under the law, that I think it's going to take some time to unfold and for us to see and understand all of the implications, but certainly a step towards more honesty and transparency in the workplace and the workplace market.
Yeah, this took place in November, but we know that as it's enacted now, failure to do so. Let's talk about that. Companies that fail to do so, what's the consequence here?
Yeah, penalties can be up to $250,000, which is not insignificant in New York City. In terms of these administrative protocols and new laws, there usually is a fair amount of forgiveness and patience as employers try to implement this policy. But to your point, the law has teeth. So there is going to be a required compliance, and there is a meaningful motivation for compliance with that penalty that you can suffer. $250,000 is a lot of money to pay as a penalty for not posting a job correctly. So employers, beware for sure.
Yeah. I want to move over to the topic of whistleblowers because that was huge. We talked about that last year on the show, but this law has taken effect. What can you tell us about where we are right now and some new developments possibly?
Sure. So yes, this new change to the New York whistleblower law has meaningful extended protections, and I think it really does two, maybe three important things. One, which is sort of just a procedural thing, is that employees have a longer time to pursue their claims, 2 years as opposed to 1. Secondly, they have the ability to come forward if they think something unlawful is happening in their workplace and make a complaint and know that they can't be fired for making that complaint. And three, they don't have to complain about something that they know is done wrong. That is, so long as they have a reasonable belief that something being done is unlawful, they can complain and be protected. That's helpful because otherwise you might imagine a situation where a worker thinks something is going on that is unlawful, but doesn't want to speak up because they know if they're wrong, they could get fired and have no protection. So meaningful change in the law, it brings New York closer to a lot of the protections that were afforded by other states already. So in some ways, New York is catching up on this one, and it's a nice change to see, giving workers a chance to speak out for everybody, the marketplace, themselves, their colleagues, and try to make the workplace more fair, more reasonable, and more lawful.
Coming towards the end of last year, there was an issue that came near to me, of course, talk about athletes, the name, image, and likeness law that took place in November here in New York. Now, we know the NCAA has a policy with name, image, and likeness, but New York seems to have taken a little stand that's angered some athletes.
Yeah, well, I think the big change is the change you mentioned to start with. That is, after a long period of time, the NCAA has now chosen to recognize that athletes can and should benefit not only with an education, but also with potentially some compensation for contracts that help with where they're getting sponsorships for their name, image, and likeness. I think, and I assume you would agree as a former athlete, that's helpful in the sense that some people have their best athletic experience in college and they don't necessarily go on to play professional sports and make a living then. So if you're a college leader and a college athlete and leader, you have a chance to profit from that to a certain extent, and I think that's important. New York's law or embrace or contemplation of the NCAA rules is slightly interesting to go through as well, and I think this will be interesting to go through in a lot of states. But while athletes can decide to hire lawyers and agents and profit from their name, image, or likeness, there are regulations. They can't do so in a way that's going to violate the team contract. They can't do so in a way that's going to violate the college code of conduct or the like. They can't do things that might undermine the reputation of the institution they're playing for. And there are certainly going to be limitations that I think we're still going to have to see about when and how they can have their sponsorships advertised or promoted, presumably not during classes, presumably not at practice. But what they can do and where is going to be a change, and the law is going to evolve on this subject. I think it's a legal change overall federally that a lot of people are happy with. I think how it's going to be implemented is going to unfold for quite some period of time. We're still going to be learning about it and hearing about it and potentially arguing about it in court as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about 2023. We're just at the beginning of it, but there are a lot of cases that we're paying attention to. I do know one, the President's Forgiveness Act. That is still up in question. What other ones can we take a look at? And I want you to elaborate a little bit more about President Biden, Biden versus Nebraska.
Sure. So Biden versus Nebraska has to do with this student debt cancellation, and the Biden put in place an initiative to try to get forgiveness for student debt. There is a meaningful Republican-led claim to challenge that, saying that his act is violating the separation of powers. And we're going to have to see how the court plays this out. If his plan goes into effect, it could cost about $400 billion and forgive about $10,000 in student loan for households making, I think it's less than $125,000 a year. So a meaningful forgiveness of student debt for potentially those families that need it the most. I think we all agree that education is very, very, very expensive on the one hand and very, very important on the other hand. So this is at least one way politically where this current president is trying to recognize that and trim some of the costs associated with the college education. I have 3 kids that are going to be going to college, so I appreciate the fact that the government is trying to address this a little bit. We'll have to see what comes out of it and what the court decides on the subject, of course.
Yeah, I only have a few seconds left, but I do want to get a chance for you to tackle the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. We saw some real significant change starting this year. Let's bring our viewers up to speed with that.
Sure. So New York's law has changed, and probably the biggest definition change is now that the definition of a family member, that is, if you're taking leave and you're taking leave to care for someone, you can now take that leave to care for domestic partners, spouses, children. That was always allowed, but now also siblings, biological siblings, adopted siblings, step siblings as well. The law allows for employees to get 67% of their take-home pay, presuming they've been with an employer a certain amount of time, for 12 weeks. So here the legislature acknowledging the fact that workers may need to take time to care for their families, and that them taking the time to care for their families is something important and something we should support.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, a lot covered here. Certainly we'll have you back. Thank you so much for giving us some insight as to what we should be paying attention to on 2023's legal front. A lot to pay attention to, a lot happening in New York City, and a lot literally happening across the nation. Patrick J. Boyd, thank you so much for being with us, brother.
My pleasure. Happy 2023 again.
Happy 2023 and good to see you. Now, listen, if you want more information, visit Patrick's website at theboydlawgroup.com. We encourage you don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open coming up right after this.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
January marks the 53rd anniversary of National Blood Donor Month, which is a time to recognize the importance of giving blood and platelets while celebrating the life-saving impact of those who roll up the sleeves to help patients in need. Now, winter tends to be one of the most difficult times to collect enough blood and some products to meet patients' needs, but we've got with us the manager of special events projects at New York Blood Center, Christine Foran, and we thank you so much for being with us. And Christine, glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me today. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and I greatly appreciate you being with us here at a very special time. I mean, any time that we can get blood is a great time, but really around this time of year, talk to us about where we are with blood donations.
That's a great point. You're right, because blood is actually needed 365 days a year. So we do need blood every single day, but January is National Blood Donor Month. Typically, donations in January are a little less. Schools have been, people are coming off the holidays. Schools are just coming back together. National Blood Donor Month was created back by President Richard Nixon. So that long ago, it's been around to help promote the awareness of blood, especially during the month of January and all year long, and to recognize the importance of blood donors to our country.
Yeah. Nixon, that wasn't too long ago. I just want you to know, it wasn't too long ago.
I was alive.
Yeah, but let me talk to you about blood donation centers, because what are you seeing at your centers right now? What was 2022 like for you, and what are you hoping to happen this year?
Well, donations have definitely not fully recovered since the pandemic. That's a fact. Prior to the pandemic, people would donate in their, their place of business, in their, where they worship, in their school. And, school blood donations weren't fully back. People are now working hybrid. So that traditional source of blood donations has definitely been impacted. We're thankful. We have donor centers all across the area, and they're so easy to find. They're permanent donor centers that are set up, and people can go in and make an appointment and donate there. So there's always a place that you can donate. But right now, we only have about a 2 to 3 day supply of types, and only about a 1 to 2 day supply of type O negative. Type O negative is the universal donor that can go to anybody. So it's really important for our hospitals to have that on staff. So we need all people to come in and donate blood wherever they can find a blood drive. And it's not that difficult. All they have to do is go to nybc.org, which is short for NewYorkBloodCenter.org, and click on the Donate Blood tab, and they can find a blood drive near them.
I'm going to put myself on blast here, because I just thought about the fact that I don't really remember exactly what my blood type is. And I think that's a story for a lot of people. But talk to us about the importance of knowing your blood type, and what should a person know before entering that donor center about their blood type?
Well, I tell you what, they can come into the blood donor center not knowing their blood type. That's absolutely fine. We'll still take you. We'll still take a blood donation from you. If you do know your type, and you know that you're a type O positive, or one of the negative types, and if you're at a certain size and weight, we might ask you to donate double red cells, because that way we'll get the red cells. Certain blood types we do want to be platelet donors or plasma donors. However, if you don't know your blood type, that's fine. Come on in. We'll still take a blood donation from you. And the good thing is you will find out your blood type after you donate. We're going to send you a donor card, and it'll have your blood type on it. So you'll be set going forward.
So when we talk about who exactly can donate blood, I know there are some people who are qualified, and then there are also some people who may not be qualified. Let's talk about who's qualified, who's not qualified.
Sure. 60% of the population is qualified to give blood. So most of the people that you see walking around are eligible to give blood. You need to be at least 17 years old to 76. And 16-year-olds can donate blood too, as long as they have parental consent. You need to be at least 110 pounds. You need to be feeling well and healthy. If you're suffering from a cold or something like that, get better first, and then come on in and give blood. Most medications, people can still donate blood, even high blood pressure, diabetes. That doesn't stop somebody from giving blood. And a lot of times people will say, oh, I can't give blood, I have high blood pressure. And they're not even trying to give blood. But the thing is if they come in that day and their blood pressure is fine, they absolutely can give blood.
And when we talk about those who are donating, I know that there are a specific need when it comes to particular demographics. And when we come to the African-American Latino community, I believe that there is an increased need. Can you confirm that? And then also any particular reason why, if so?
Yeah, I actually can. Yes, we're always looking for a diverse blood population. Everybody has that ABO type, but then there are certain antigens on your blood that might make it more rare. And certain diseases like sickle cell, that uses a lot of blood, and that's very predominant within the Black community. So we need people to come in, a diverse donor base, and because who knows, they might have those markers that'll really help patients with sickle cell. And sickle cell patients, unfortunately, the only treatment they still have is a blood transfusion. And it's their blood that's attacking them. Red cells are round. They kind of float through the system. But sickle cell, the blood becomes in a sickle shape, and it kind of bounces against each other and doesn't bounce. It kind of stacks against each other, and it doesn't move throughout the body easily. That's what's called sickle cell crisis. So we definitely want to make sure we always have blood on hand for our sickle cell patients.
Yeah. And so at this time of year, you usually get the word out. A lot of people get more involved, take blood donations. But I know there's also drives, and people can sometimes organize drives and get their centers or their churches to really be places where this can happen. How do they go about doing that?
Well, that's easy enough. Once again, if they just go to nybc.org, there's you'll see volunteer opportunities. And one of the volunteer opportunities is to host a blood drive. So what they would do is then give us their name, their contact information, and we'll reach out to them about getting a blood drive set up. We look for blood drives that are going to bring in, minimum of 30 to 40 donations, but we'll take large blood drives up to, we run 500-pint blood drives if the base is there. But we always need blood drives, and that way it gives a chance for people to come in and try to donate for the first time that they may not have come in before. People will donate blood if it's convenient. People will donate blood if they have an available situation. So by hosting a blood drive, you could open up a whole new population of people who've never donated blood before.
Yeah. I want to talk about that first-time donor. I think somebody's out there and, they have their little apprehension as to maybe it's the needle apprehension, or maybe it's just the fact that I'm going to do this for the very first time and I don't know how much they're going to get out of me. So when you take a donation, talk to us about how much you're taking from a person and where it goes from there.
Well, absolutely. And, that's interesting that you said that about first-time blood donors. The number one reason why people don't donate blood is they're not asked, not because they're afraid of needles. It's just because they've never been asked. Most people can get past the needle factor. So when they come in to donate blood, we're gonna go through some screening questions first, which is gonna ask about travel, how they're feeling, just kind of like a mini screening questionnaire. After that, they're then gonna sit down with our donor specialist, who's gonna take their blood pressure, their pulse, their iron, their temperature, making sure that they're all well and good to give blood. Because of course, the safety of our donors is our number one issue. So if everything checks out and they're good to give blood, they're then going to go on to donation. That's approximately a 10-minute process, and in which they're going to give about a pint of blood. So, you can kind of picture like about a pint of milk for a good estimate of how much blood they're going to take. After they donate blood, they then go into everybody's favorite part, juice and cookies, which was what we call our canteen. And we're going to have them sit there for about 10, 15 minutes, making sure that they're feeling well and healthy. And then they can go about their day and resume normal business. They can go about and do everything they still planned on doing that day.
Well, Christine, you gave us some helpful information here because obviously for a first-time donor, they want to know that. And I think for those of us that are out there that know a little bit more about it, we'll possibly take that next step. But as we know that this is Blood Donor Month, and we want to thank you for being with us and sharing.
I thank you so much for having me. It really is important to help get out the word, and anything we can do, we're trying to do. So we so appreciate that you're taking the time to have us on and really spread the good work about, what New York Blood Center tries to do. But most importantly, it's always a patient that's getting that blood. And I just want to remind people, there's somebody on the receiving end of that donation. It's not just, it doesn't just go away to a lab. It actually goes to a patient. You're help saving that patient's life, because one donation can save up to 3 lives.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing. Christine Foran, Manager of Special Events and Projects at the New York Blood Center. Now, for more information, you can visit their website at nybc.org and then follow them on Facebook, Instagram at New York Blood Center. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open coming up right after this.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Well, most United States employees work at will, allowing companies to legally terminate them for almost any reason or for no reason at all. The Secure Jobs Act is aimed at protecting workers against unfair and arbitrary firing. unless their boss can demonstrate misconduct, unsatisfactory performance, or a genuine economic need to eliminate their position. Joining us now is the sponsor of the bill, the Secure Jobs Act from New York City Council District Number 22, Tiffany Cabán. And Council Member Cabán, thank you so much for joining us and sharing. And as we look at this bill, obviously it's a controversial bill on some fronts, but one that you deem very necessary. Talk to us about why you feel this bill is so necessary.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And I'd like to think that when it's broken down, it's not controversial at all, right? You mentioned it up top. Here in the United States, we have mostly at-will employment, which means that your boss, you can show up to work one day and your boss could fire you for no reason or any reason at all. And the reality is that across the country and here in New York, most people don't have $1,000 to spare in the case of an emergency, a medical emergency, a housing emergency. And so being able to create a process for stability, right? To know that you're going to go to work one day and you're going to go home with that same job. And if you are at risk of losing your employment, you have warning that your employer has done their due diligence and done proper training with you. But it's, for me, that sounds like the most basic thing on the planet, because right now we have employees that can be fired for speaking out about dangerous conditions, can be fired for discriminatory reasons, and there's not really good recourse. And so this bill, covers that gap. And then the other side of the coin, I will say, to sort of like dispute the idea of it being sort of controversial, is that employers can still terminate employees. It just means that you got to do it the right way, that you have to show that economic or financial hardship, that you have to give, a 2-week warning. The bill incorporates a disciplinary matrix, right? So it actually helps employers along in creating that record and supporting employees where they can, and then terminating where it's appropriate.
Yeah, I want to talk about fast food workers. We understand that they had some, similar situation, but they did able to come across in their case and got some relief there. But when you look at them, and when I talk about fast food, I mean, there's tens of thousands of them in 2021 that benefited from a law that actually took effect. How much do you feel that this helps to bolster your legislation and getting it across the finish line?
It absolutely bolsters it, right? Because when that bill was being considered, you had big fast food corporations saying that this is going to put mom and pop shops out of business, that also all kinds of businesses were going to leave the jurisdiction. And those things didn't happen. What fast food workers are finding is that they have the support they need to bring suit where appropriate when they're unfairly fired. None of that flight existed. And I think it's important to know who really fights against these kinds of bills. It's the big corporations, right? It's the Amazons of the world. And so, Amazon, for example, is a corporation and the kind of corporation that fights tooth and nail against just cause protections. And for them to say that the reason is to protect mom and pop shops just doesn't make any sense, because they're also the corporations that are killing mom and pop shops right now, right? Like driving them out of business. And what the fast food workers bill has shown is that it doesn't do any of the things that sort of people had fear-mongered around, but has only created more stability for workers.
Yeah. Councilwoman Cabán, when I first started, I started using that word controversial when we were in the lead, talking about this is potentially controversial, because you do have some people on the other side of the aisle that are your opponents, and they say, listen, this is too restrictive. It puts, it handcuffs us. We can't get, this is just, we'll leave it handcuffed. Talk to me about, what do you say to those persons who say, listen, you know what, this is a very restrictive legislation, and we're for some things, but not this.
Yeah, well, the reality is that, and I think about the small businesses in my neighborhood, right, in District 22, in Astoria, in Woodside, in Jackson Heights, we have some of the best small businesses around. And for 95% of employers, this is going to affect you zero. Why? Because you care about your employees and you do the right thing. And this really is only going to target bad actors who are exploiting workers. And again, we have to balance that need of, how many stories. The reason why we introduced this legislation was hearing directly from workers being like, I showed up to work one day, I was in the middle of my shift, and my boss said, don't come back tomorrow. What am I going to do? I have to pay for childcare, I have to pay for my groceries. and not being given that good reason. So there's still ample mechanisms for terminations where it's appropriate, but it injects a level of fairness and financial stability for folks that they need to survive. And so, for the naysayers, if you are a good employer that does things the right way, which is a lot of folks, this is going to affect you zero, but it is going to make the workplace much more fair for folks who really, really need it. And if I could point out the people who are most vulnerable, right, like this is really going to be big for traditionally low-wage workers. It's going to be big for women because quite often women that are doing sort of domestic-based work and stuff get exploited to higher degrees than other workers. The same with our immigrant neighbors and immigrant workers, the same with Black and brown workers. We see that those folks bear the brunt of unfair firings and deserve to be protected in the workplace.
Yeah, I want to go back over some of the terms of the Secure Jobs Act. Requires employers to provide 14 days notice and written explanation when terminating an employee. It also prohibits the use of electronic monitoring in discipline and discharge decisions, and also implements a progressive discipline system to give employees the opportunity to receive feedback and improve work performance before being terminated. It then also requires employees to provide a proof of economic hardship, or I should say employers that provide proof of economic hardship before they lay workers off. And for yourself, as the sponsor, talk to us about where we are and where it goes from here.
Well, we have built this beautiful broad coalition. So we have partners that are leading this campaign, from unions to community-based organizations to faith-based leaders. And so it's just this really wide array of folks that are ready to fight really, really hard for this legislation. And I think it's going to be exciting. Part of what we have to do is also just talk to our neighbors about what this legislation means, to your point, so people understand. Because people might honestly already think that, oh, of course I can't be fired for no reason at all. And of course I don't want to be fired for no reason at all. And to make sure that there are mechanisms in place to prevent that from happening. So we're excited about the momentum that we're building. We're getting ready for a big sort of public launch with all of our partners. So hope y'all can check it out, and looking forward to fighting to make the workplace a fairer place for a lot of workers.
Yeah, we've been talking about the Secure Jobs Act, and Tiffany Cabán, who is the New York City Council member of District 22. Councilwoman Cabán, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we will follow this, and love to have you back as this continues to go forward.
Thanks so much.
All righty. Well, we want to let you know that if you want more information, you can visit the Councilwoman on her website, I should say on her social media platforms. That would be Twitter at Tiffany_Cabán. Well, we've come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, guess what? You can catch Recablecast on Optimum Channel 67, Rising Files Channel 2133, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Also, if you're desiring a brand new episode, yes, you can catch it with my girl Rena Valentine on Friday. This about wraps up this episode for us. I am Daren Jaime. Saying make sure to keep this channel wide open. Saying take care, God bless, and it's been a joy being with you for this time.